Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today. We'll get started right at the top of the hour. So good afternoon, fellow Texas Realtors. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cindi Bulla, your 2021 Immediate Past Chair of Texas Realtors. And I'm here to tell you today that your voice counts. Today is going to be all about the future. It's about you and your role guiding the local, the state, and the national vision of one of the most powerful and influential trade associations on the planet. It's a brand that's worth $5 billion. It's the Realtor brand. We shape our communities. We shape Texas and the U.S. by shaping policy that affects our consumers, our markets, and our business. As members of a member-run organization, we all have a role to play in our success, because that power, that influence comes with epic responsibility. We all must invest. And notice I said invest, not donate. We all must invest some level of time. So we have to do that in order to meet our obligation to the Texas consumers and the markets that we so heavily influence through our advocacy. So hopefully you're here today to explore those opportunities. In our 360 meetings this year, our Texas Leadership Team will talk about the 3 Ps of association participation and leadership. Those are purpose, passion, and path. And we have with us today an absolute dream team of Texas-based realtors. And they're going to answer your questions today about those 3 Ps. What a privilege it is to have our own Leslie Rouda Smith from Plano, who will be the 2022 president of NAR. And she has a career-long history of service at the local, at the state, and national levels, including Texas Realtors chairman in 2016. We also have Shad Bogany of Houston, who served as chairman of HAR before serving as Texas Realtors chairman in 2013. Shad currently serves on the NAR Disaster Policy Work Group and Data Strategies and MLS Issues Committee for NAR. We also have Johnny Mowad of Dallas, who currently serves as the NAR Vice Chair for the Multiple Listing Issues Forum, and he will be the chair in 2022. He also has served as the president of North Texas Real Estate Information Systems. Many of you know that as NTREIS, which is, and this came as a surprise to me, I didn't realize this, the largest MLS in Texas, and one of the largest MLSs of its kind as a cooperative among several Metro-Tex-based boards, serving over 48,000 subscribers. And Johnny also serves as local association, Texas Realtors, and the National Association of Realtors in a myriad of positions. So the timing of this conversation is perfect because we still have a few days left for you to volunteer for a 2022 committee at NAR. Committee applications are also open now for Texas Realtors, and your local boards will likely be seeking applicants for their 22 committees in the weeks ahead. So during this show today, we'll post links to the state and national information as we go, and then we'll talk more about deadlines as we wrap up today's show. I have some questions for all of our panelists to get us started, but we want to hear from you. So be sure to add yours to the chat box, and we will get to as many of those today as we can during our time. So let's jump right in with purpose. So Johnny, have you seen this market? I don't have an ounce of time to spare. I'm busy with my business. Why on earth would I want to slow down and risk money-making opportunities in this hot market to volunteer for a job?
Sure. Hey, Cindy, thank you for having me on today. In regards to your question, I think the first thing to consider is the big why. Why are you a realtor? Why are you committed to the idea of being a Texas Realtor and an NAR Realtor? Why do you want to make a difference? I personally want to be one of the leading realtors in our industry that helps bring about positive change while being a trusted source of information for my clients, my association, my state, and of course, NAR. As a volunteer leader, we each have our own why. While we may all have several different reasons for our involvement, the common denominator in all levels of leadership and involvement go towards maintaining the health of the real estate industry as a whole. Volunteers help influence association activities and policies. We are the face of the association and the larger real estate community at large. By engaging in your local association, state and national leadership opportunities, you are able to expand your professional and personal growth. From keeping you updated on current trends to expanding your professional networks, volunteering is what helped to take my career to the next level, and I hope it can do that for you as well.
Wow, thank you, Johnny. Okay, so that's purpose. Shad, let's say Johnny just convinced me that I need to get involved. So now I'm going to look for my personal why, my, say, purpose, if you will. What might that be? And what are some examples of entry-level purposes, knowing that those might change as I grow in my leadership journey?
Thank you very much, Cindy. And thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. So let's start off on why would you want to get involved? You know, when I started, I wanted to get involved because I didn't like people making decisions for me and I had no input. I felt like I was a working realtor and I would go to meetings and they said, this is how things are going to be done. And I'm like, no one never asked me. So when you're trying to determine whether or not you want to get involved, some of the things, some people are doing it for resume building. Some people are doing it because they want to get in leadership. Some people want to give back to the industry. My decision to get involved was basically because I wanted to have control of my destiny and giving input into the industry. So I think that is the really most important thing, is deciding what's your path that you want to go down and what's important to you. But I think the thing that we have to keep in mind, that we are a grassroots organization. People are making decisions every day on how we do business, and they need our input into it because we're where the tire meets the road. So I think if you're really interested, despite all the great market that's going on, things are still happening around you that you need that the Texas Realtors need your input on.
Thank you, Shad. Leslie, let's move to passion. So I know that you will be a second generation NAR president behind your father, Harley Rouda. So like him, at some point you made your own decision to get involved as an association volunteer. If you think all the way back to that very first volunteer position, what was it? Why did you start there? And how might such an early experience inspire someone to go further in leadership? Maybe to extend that, what makes it worth it?
So I would highly recommend that you start at your local association if you have not volunteered at any level. And so I started at my local association and I was involved in what was then called Paint the Town. And it was to help those less fortunate. And I always love any opportunity to help those in need. So I really enjoyed it. I look so forward to it. And I didn't like that it was only once a year because I wanted to do it more often. But then I decided to be the chairman of it. And wouldn't you know, that's when lead-based paint issues came up. And so we had to change it to Plant the Town. And I thought, well, this is awesome. Why did this happen my year? But you know, it ended up being really great. And we continued to help those less fortunate and maybe do a little bit of painting without anybody knowing it. And so I just always enjoyed giving back. One thing that I've learned a lot along the way, and I think we could all do better at this, is to toot our own horns for all the involvement that we give back to our industry. So when there's something on the ballot or something in session, like the HOA that's being discussed right now, why don't we as realtors toot our horn when we're on a listing appointment or with our buyers and let them know the knowledge that we gain because we are involved. And something that I would also recommend is that if you're on a listing appointment and you're talking about something that maybe you learned at a Texas Realtors convention, you might ask Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you interviewing anyone else for this listing? And if they say yes, we have a couple more appointments this afternoon, say, well, you know, I think you ought to ask them about Prop 1 or what's going on in the legislature about HOAs or whatever it might be, because most likely there's about a 0% chance they'll have a clue what the sellers are asking them, which will certainly make you shine and look a lot better. And then you better get that listing.
That's a great reminder, Leslie. So often we forget to explain that side of our business to our clients. And that is, we're all looking for ways to distinguish ourselves from our competitors. And that's a great way to do it. So, Johnny, there are volunteer positions. Are there? First of all, let's talk about, are there volunteer positions that require less time than others? And if so, how do I find out how much time I need to budget for at least, say, one volunteer position? And maybe you could name some examples for us that require less or no travel, or maybe just a few hours a month.
Sure. So, you know, you may be in the early stages of exploring your realtor involvement, or you may have served in numerous positions over the years and looking to take your involvement to the next level. Regardless of where you may be in the process, you know, we're definitely here to help you. And that's what this panel is here for today. You know, many committees at the state and national level only meet 2 to 3 times a year and coincide with mid-year and annual conferences. So it's kind of a win-win because you should already be there, right? As far as other things go, you can learn more about committees by reading the descriptions or asking a current committee member. I've always found that to be very beneficial, as they can kind of give you the ins and outs as to what may be expected in your time commitment. And if you prefer not to travel, consider your local involvement. If you may be considering local involvement, log on to your association's website and your association will be able to give that information to you. Should your association be smaller or it may not have an advanced website, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your area executive and or other committee members that you know are a part of it, and they'll be able to get you in the right direction as well.
Great answer. Thank you, Bonnie. So Shad, tell me what committee service will cost me. Will I have to spend money out of my pocket? How do I find that out? And aside from money and time, are there other sacrifices I'll have to make if I actually work my way into some level of leadership? And maybe you could describe for yourself some of the things that you had to give up that you didn't realize you would.
Well, first of all, I'd also like for everybody to know that they can go to www.texasrealestate.com committees and see what committees are available to them. You know, Cindi, I will tell you that the sacrifice is very minimal. Depending on which committee that you're on, you could come up to Austin. You know, they're doing a lot of committee meetings virtually now. You could go to NAR meeting. I will tell you, every meeting I've gone to, every conference I've gone to, I've learned something from that conference. I can tell you many ideas I've gotten to improve my business because I went to conference, was sitting in an education seminar and heard someone tell me about something. It's an excellent way to go and network. So you really don't give up anything at all. What you do is you increase your ability to do business by learning new ideas on things that you can improve on and how you can improve your business. But I think most importantly is the networking, understanding what's coming down the pipe, legislatively wise, whether or not there's a new industry trend that may be able to help me. So I think as far as commitment, as far as time, it's really not that much, because what it amounts to is you taking the time to start delegating. And it's sort of like whenever you're going out of town, you know how you last day before you go out of town, you got a lot of business you got to take care of. You just do it all. You get everything done quickly. And so what I've learned from myself is that it's giving me less time to goof off or do anything. It keeps me focused on my business and working. As far as sacrificing, this is the one thing I want you to remember. Every time you come to a meeting in Austin, every time you go to NAR meeting, it's a tax write-off. So I'm investing in my business. So I'm okay with that, because if I don't put it in myself, I'm giving it to Uncle Sam.
Thank you, Shad. So Leslie, let's kind of turn it to a little bit of a selfish twist here. I get it. I don't want to necessarily be selfish, and yes, I'm all about giving back. But are there any fringe benefits that would benefit me enough to offset all the time and effort and maybe missed opportunities that I might have if I'm doing an extended level of service with either my local, state, or national association?
Well, Cindi, that's always a great question. And believe it or not, it's a really easy one to answer, because I don't know anybody who's ever been involved who did not find a benefit. And I love to talk about my good friend Shad. When he was the chairman of the Texas REALTORS in 2013, he ranked number 4 with a very large franchise in the Houston area. Number 4 with a huge franchise, while he's chairman of the 3rd largest state. So this is a guy who did this with himself and one assistant, not a team of people, Shad and his assistant. So I just know if Shad can do it, others can too. I know Shad is very organized. This is a guy who has a radio show that's over 30 years that he's been consistent with. So, think about what is on his plate. Think about what's on my plate as president-elect of the largest trade association in the world. And you are a member of that association. One thing that I love about realtors, it truly is a realtor family. So whether you have your own family that you're related to, the realtor family will be your family, non-related, but you will fall in love with them. And it's amazing to be a part of all that you learn from each other about other markets. I can tell you, if there's anybody who asks me, do you know a realtor in this city? 9 times out of 10, I can tell you right off the top of my head and send you the contact info. And if it's a city that's like a suburb of a major city that I haven't heard of, it would take me one person to get to where you need to go. So when it comes to relocation, I am my own relocation department. I can handle it all. And, people text me all the time, hey, who do you know here? Who do you know there? And it's like, gosh, where do I start? I know so many. I can also tell you, if I ever have a question and I post it on social media, I will have more answers that I could ever want in less than 5 minutes. From anything from, do you like the top load or the front load washer? You wouldn't believe all the answers I got before I bought my washing machine. And I'm glad I asked, because I didn't want a front load after what I heard from people who had bought them. So I felt like I made the right decision. But there are so many things that you can ask and get answers. And I also know that if I were stranded anywhere in the United States, I would have at least a dozen people that would come and rescue me in a matter of minutes, because of the network that is created by being involved. The number of referrals that you get is amazing. Our daughter, for example, has been very involved. And just about a month or 2 ago, she had 12 referrals in 1 week. And they are great referrals when they come from your realtor family. So there's also a lot of fun that comes with it, with all the great people that you meet. So highly recommend getting involved if you aren't already.
Great answers, Leslie. And I'm sure that all of us on the call today can attest to that being the case. No matter what level of leadership or volunteerism you're in, volunteers tend to be like-minded people and do that. So I'm seeing a couple of hands raised, and I'm not sure on the platform today we can accommodate the raised hands and all the bringing people in, but you do have access to the chat. So do put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to everything when we're finished. Leslie, I'm going to stay with you for another question. We know that the NAR tool for applying for committees for 2022 is now open. What is something that we all need to know before we apply for an NAR committee? And specifically, do I have to have served at the local or state level before I apply?
Well, you do not have to serve at the local or state level, although I would recommend that. You can go to nar.realtor and search committees and just read the descriptions of the committees. Some have prerequisite requirements. Some are compositions. Some are what we call hand-picked. Some are picked by states and regions. And I know that's a lot to try and figure out. I will tell you that most of what are called the hand-picked committees would be anything related to the Realtor Party, anything related to the conference, executive committee, finance. Those are some of the, and strategic thinking is a big committee as well. One way to look at NAR, and I know that I'm probably the only one who looks at it this way, but I look at NAR as two silos. We are based in Chicago, but we also have another headquarter office in Washington, D.C. for all of our lobbying efforts. So to me, you either fall on the Chicago side or the DC side, depending on what committee you are on. Now, I have served probably equally on both sides. So you need to find what your passions are. If you don't get on a committee, it's not the end of the world. We have work group, task force, PAGs. You can go to any committee meeting that's not closed and give your business card to the people that are the leadership of the committee, as well as the staff liaison. Write the name of the committee on the back, get their business card, send them an email and thank them for their time, and just say, yeah, I didn't get on a committee, really like this committee. It's really what I'm looking for and where my passions lie. So if you have anything come up on a PAG or work group, I'd sure love the opportunity. Then if you have that opportunity, make a difference, speak up, engage. Don't just sit there and take up space, because they will replace you with someone who will speak up and engage. So make a difference, read the materials ahead of time. And there's a variety of positions at NAR, from literally having 2 meetings a year to lots of travel. So you have to look at what works for you. The entry-level positions are not going to be high travel because they don't involve that. I've had a lot of people ask me the last few weeks, you know, what should I sign up for? I have no idea what you should sign up for. You're going to have to go to nar.realtor and look at the committee descriptions, because sometimes I even would have to go back and say, well, I don't know if I want that. And I had someone at my local board who didn't get on a committee, and I said, I'll get you on something, hang on. So I called staff and I said, anybody declined their appointment? They said, yes, I've got one on this committee. And they went to the meeting and they said, that is not at all what I thought that committee was going to be. And I said, well, just suffer through for a year and we'll get you on something else. So it may not be for you, and that's okay, because we don't all love everything. My passions when I got into it were education and RPAC, and that's still kind of where I am. So everyone has their own thing. I mean, we have people who love risk management and professional standards, and you know what? Those are the people that need to do that, because that's where their passion lies. So lots of great opportunities. I'm always happy to answer any questions that anybody has on that.
So before we move on, Leslie, I want to follow up with you about the recommendations and about the whether it's appropriate or inappropriate if I reach out, or if I feel like I want to reach out to somebody and let them know that I have interest. So how important are recommendations, and what kind of strategy should I use for those electronic recommendations? And should I reach out, say, to the committee chair or to the staff of the committee I want on?
You know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that unless you've already been serving on the committee and they know who you are. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't mean a whole lot to them. I will tell you something that's very important that a lot of people don't think about. Staff does matter, and staff is important. We are looking at thousands of applications. We have 100 committees and forums to fill with, I mean, some committees have over 100 people. So there are thousands of people on these committees. We're looking at all these profiles. So whatever you put in the first or second sentence on your profile is about all we're going to get to based on the massive number that we're looking at. But just to give you an idea, whoever is the current first vice president, that's Kenny Parcell from Utah right now, he will be making his vice chair appointments in the next, I'd say, 2 months. And then the president-elect, which is my position, I am the one who fills all the committee spots for 2022. So behind Kenny will be Tracy Casper, who was just elected at board of directors. She'll make her vice chair appointments next year. So it's good to know which position does what. Certainly, if you're able to talk to them in person at a meeting, I think that's always better. And then maybe write on the back of a business card, follow up with an email. I will tell you, only because I've heard this from several people, gifts, flowers, repeated text messages and things like that actually do not work. I know a lot of people think they will, but what it ends up doing is make people wonder why you have to try so hard. And then it ends up not helping you in the end. So just food for thought, because I've seen that not be very productive for people in the past. But we do one committee per member, but there are committee appointments that other committee appointments come with, based on the position. So if you find out someone has more than one appointment, there might be a reason, and it has to do with the composition of that committee, and if they're in leadership on a committee that puts them on that committee, as well as the one that they're in leadership on. So don't let that bother you. And also know that our committees are 1 to 3 year terms, depending on the composition of the committee. Again, a lot of committees have at-large appointments, AE, GAD, which is Government Affairs Director appointments, and there are all kinds of different slots to fill. So I will also tell you that in all my years of leadership, which is decades of being in leadership, there's nothing harder than picking vice chairs and committee members. It's the hardest job I'll ever do, because I want to plug everyone in on their first choice and give everyone what they want. And unfortunately, it's not that easy. But we do try to make sure that it's very diverse by gender, geographic, years in business, specialties, whatever it might be. So we work really, really hard to expand it out as far as we can to as many people.
Thank you, Leslie. That's a great answer. I can't believe flowers don't count.
Nobody's ever
Shad,
so I'm not speaking for me.
Shad, I'm gonna move on to you, and I'd love for you to fill in any gaps at the NAR level, because I know you have a lot of experience with committee work at NAR as well. But then I want you to really hone in on state committees. The committee tool for state is also open right now for Texas Realtors, and I'd love for you to kind of talk to us, kind of address some of those same things Leslie did at the state level.
I think Leslie hit it all, Cindi, in regards to what's happening at NAR and how to do it. I think it's so important that you make sure you fill out your profile at NAR so they know what your expertise is. And if we roll that down to the state level, you have profiles at the state level, and you should make sure you fill out your state level profile. And I think one of the things that sometimes we forget being in that room with you, Cindi, is knowing you don't have the picture. You don't give me a picture. So I may not know a name, but oh, I know that picture when it's so many different members applying for committees. So I would think the first thing you need to do is follow your passion. And if you're new to becoming involved, I started off in Feature Leadership Committee. It was called FLC, Feature Leadership Committee, FLC, excuse me. And now that's called YPN. You might want to go to members benefits. You start off and just start getting involved, because you've got to have a sense of how things work, how things are being done, what's all included. This association is very grassroots. So you have to follow those particular leads and rules. And I know my first year serving on the committee, I sit and listened a little bit. But I think Leslie said something earlier that's really, really important. You don't get on these committees just to sit and look. You get on these committees to act, because there's a reason you're there. You may accidentally see something that none of us saw, and it could be essential to solving a problem. So my thought is that make sure your profile is done. I would also call the chairman of that committee, and Leslie Flowers and Candy really work for me. But I will share with you that call your committee chair, talk to that committee chair and says, hey, I'd like to be on your committee. Also look at who's vice chair. Now I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Secretary Treasurer at Texas Realtors is really important, because that person's going to be on the line the longest. And if they've chosen a red shirt or someone who's coming up behind, that's the second most important person. And let them know what your passion is, where you would like to go. And, you know, sometimes people say, I want to be on business policy committee. I want to be on TREPAC or RPAC or some of the really heavy carrying committees. Well, a lot of those committees are chosen based on experience. And you can get that experience because I got that experience by just serving, moving along on the committees. But I think it's just so important that if you don't get your first choice, keep trying to get to that point by getting on a committee, understanding how the association, what the strategic plan is of the association, and what the goals of that committee is going to be. And I think once you learn that, it is a step-by-step process. It's hard to come on and never served on a committee and be on finance committee or business policy. Usually those are really held out for people with a lot of experience in association work, has served on several committees. And so eventually you can get there because those members usually rotate off, Cindi. So my deal, fill out your profile at NAR. Make sure you fill out your profile, tell them what your experience is, and also reach out to the staff person, possibly the liaison person, and possibly the chair, the vice chair and chair, and let them know that you like to serve on that committee. And maybe go to those committees at NAR or the Texas conference and sit in the room. You may not be on the committee, but sit and listen to what's going on. And a lot of them really invite you in so you'll know what's happening in those committees.
Thank you, Shad. Great answers here. I'm seeing a lot of interest in some questions, and we are going to get to as many of those as we possibly can. And I'm going to open it up for questions here in just a few minutes. But before I do that, Johnny, I would love for you to sort of tie a little bow on this component of the conversation. We've heard Leslie talk about NAR and Shad talk about Texas Realtors. How does that fit with a typical local association or other opportunities? You are a great example of an opportunity that was outside the direct purview of the association, but probably you worked your way there. And understanding that each local association may handle it differently, but how might there be some things in common that would help thread the needle and help a new volunteer find their way into a seat in the appropriate chair on the right path for them at any one of the three levels of our association?
Sure, we're always in search of good leaders, and we need to make sure we have a healthy pipeline of future leaders and members, of course. Remember, your voice counts, and we want to hear from you. If we don't get that communication, like Shad said, like Leslie has mentioned, we need the fresh view. We need that outside person to come in and kind of help the leaders who are a little bit more seasoned see different avenues, different opportunities. Sometimes we do have leaders who consistently contribute throughout the years in leadership roles, and oftentimes these individuals are highly specialized, as both Shad and Leslie have discussed, within our realtor industry. That being said, we'd love to have even more people involved in shaping our industry, as that's the only way we can continue to grow. If you take only one thing away from today's panel, let it be this. If you are considering volunteering and or taking your leadership skills to the next level, please seek out a mentor. This can be anyone from your brokerage firm, your local association, your state, and even your national association. If you may be struggling to find someone, I will personally put my contact information in the chat box, as I'd be happy to get you with the right people.
Thank you very much, Johnny. I'm going to open it up now, and we're going to address some of the questions that are accumulating over in the chat. So one of them, and this may have been asked and answered, but I want to reinforce this because it's so important. Wendy Armstrong asks, I want to volunteer, but I'm a brand new realtor. Is that okay? Shad, you want to address that? Oh, you're muted, Shad. I knew I was going to get to say that today. Woohoo!
We need you involved. And it all starts with wanting to get involved. And yes, pick out a committee that you have some passion with. We've got maybe 10, 15 committees. Start with members benefits. Start with YPN if you're a young realtor, and if you're not a young realtor, we still need you because you're going to bring something to the table that some of us may not have heard or an experience that will help all of us.
Thank you, Shad. So Tim Schoendorf, I know you had something just a minute ago, and I was not aware, but I can, Sandy tells me via text that she can let you ask your question out loud. Are you still with us? Oh, Tim says, I'm good. Of course you are, Tim. You're a great volunteer. Thanks for that. So here's another one. Can members really make a difference? And if so, give us an example. Leslie, can you do that?
Well, I don't even know where you could start with that because yes, members make a difference. That's why we all are involved in the industry.
Right.
We make a difference, and it makes a difference for us to be involved in the way of making a difference. You know, I look at the NAR committees and I look at, like, we're working on 1031 exchanges. I can, you know, like the PPP, the Payment Protection Program, that was part of the stimulus plan for the first time in the history of this country. Independent contractors were part of a stimulus plan. And you know what? That didn't just happen. It happened because of all the hardworking people on staff and volunteers at the National Association of Realtors. While you're out listing and selling, they're working behind the scenes to make sure that not just realtors are taken care of with what's going on with the DOJ and other things, but also making sure that home ownership and private property rights are at the forefront of every single thing we do. So it's kind of amazing. You know, I've spoken before and I've had people say, you know what we should do? We should hire some lobbyists. And I must tell you that I have to look at my shoes and literally bite my tongue before I can come back up for air, because I'm thinking, you know, what desert island are you living on that you don't know the lobbyists that we have at the state and national level? Texas is also the largest trade association in the state of Texas. We have amazing lobbyists at the state and national level, and they don't sleep a lot. They work nonstop, especially when we are in session. So there is a lot that goes on. I mean, we could write volumes of books about all the things that we have supported in our favor or not passed in our favor. And if you ever want to know, go to texasrealestate.com and search for the TREPAC calculator. Pick the best year you've ever had in real estate, plug your numbers in, and you tell me what it's worth to you. I had somebody that I know pretty well do that with what was their best year probably 15 years ago. And we all know things are better now. They would have paid more than $100,000 in additional fees and taxes if it weren't for all the work that your state and national associations do, and your local as well, because our locals are working with elected officials at the local level, some of them that serve at the state and national level. So there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on that if you're not involved, you don't know about. So that makes it worthwhile.
Leslie, you bring up a great point. One of the most profound, and always will be the most profound, examples of how the grassroots of our organization, the members who really lead it and drive the vision that the leaders actually work with the staff on executing. One of the most profound examples of that was the essential services designation that we achieved so rapidly last year. That took a national effort that your leadership team in Texas actually joked a little bit a couple of days before it actually happened. We were joking about if only we could change the definition of essential services to include realtors, and it was as if we had wished on a star, because just a couple of days later we got notice that the CISA definition had been changed, and then it had to go through your governor, and your governor had to agree with it, and then you had to take it to the local. And those three branches of the realtor organization working together through member-driven efforts that were at like local committees started this conversation. So those three things happened, and it literally changed the history of real estate in Texas. in the nation, really, but especially in Texas, because we also had the credibility with our state legislators and our local legislators to make it happen so that we could continue to practice. And that didn't happen everywhere. So all those things we build together as partners, 1.4 million of us in the United States, and about 140,000 of us in Texas, and however many are in your local. That's a big deal, and it wields a lot of power. Missy Cardenas just put in the chat that she loves your idea and your discussion, Johnny, about the mentorship and how important that is, and being able to get the encouragement and the guidance, especially on the path. We talked about purpose, passion, and path, and probably once you establish your purpose and figure out what's your passion and which direction you go, the next most important thing is your path. Johnny, to that end,
Cindi?
what if I'm brand new to this system and I'm looking around and I'm saying, I see a lot of the same faces. Is this just a good old boys club? What's going on? You know, how do I get involved? And am I really welcome? How would you answer that?
You know, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the sway of the water cooler talk, if you will, but it's not. You know, everybody is welcomed, everybody is wanted. You know, one of the best things that's ever happened to me is having positive mentors in my life. You know, I started on a, you know, something that I may have not been necessarily as passionate about as things that I'm now involved in, but they created opportunities for me in other areas. And so you may start out on one path and end up on another, but if you have the right guide and the right mentor, everything will always work out. And I'm sitting here on this video call, and I can tell you every single person on this call and those who are working behind the scenes have personally helped me at some point in time. I mean, Shad is killing it in Houston. He's always been there, you know, at the state conventions. He's one of those faces that I know if I'm ever in a room, I know I can always find Shad and sit by him, and we can have a good time and kind of cut up without getting in too much trouble. And Leslie, oh my gosh, I can't say enough good things about our future president and personal friend of mine. She has been there to help guide me and walk me down my path and give me advice, you know, in my journey. And without that mentorship and the mentorship of other important people in my career, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I just want to thank you all and encourage everyone that may be watching this today. You've already taken the step to get involved. So please, please, please don't stop there. Contact any one of us and we'll help you get involved in the right way.
Yeah, Leslie.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't map out or plan a path. You can always put down what you hope will happen, but the odds of it going that way are not 100%. I can tell you there's lots of ways I thought things were going to go, and I can also tell you I never thought I'd be NAR president. So, you know, you just never know how things are going to happen, if you're going to get where you want to go, or if you're going to go off on a tangent somewhere else, or a new committee is formed and they tap you to chair the first version of that committee. So be open to opportunities. Also be sure that you're able to commit and give 100%.
So Leslie, oh, go ahead, Shad.
I was going to just chime in on one thing that I wanted to mention is leadership, and that's being a chairman or a vice chairman. How do you get to that point? And so we have a thing called TRLP, Texas REALTORS Leadership Program. If your local association may have a program, or you can attend one around the state. This is how we develop leaders. They understand what's going on in the association. They know the most intimate thoughts of what's happening in the industry, because they're being taught how to lead, how the association works. And when people like Leslie, when people like yourself, Cindi, are picking new leaders, they look and see who went through this program. And the good thing about TRLP is that the qualities of leadership that you learn is not just for the Realtor organization, for your church, your PTA, your school, any organization that you may be running. So I would encourage people to join, sign up for TRLP, and learn what leadership is all about.
Great points. Here's a good one. Leslie, I'm going to toss this to you because you touched on it a while ago when you talked about geography. So the three of you are all from large boards. Does everybody need to be from a large board? And what are the chances someone from a small board will get selected for committee service?
That's hugely important. And that's a great point, because I would never want anybody from a small board, no matter how small, to not think it's important to get involved. Because you have to remember that we don't need everybody focused on the legislative side. We don't need everybody focused on the professional standards side. Because if we all did, then we'd be missing all these other pieces to the puzzle. Well, guess what? Small, medium, large, and mega boards are all a part of our growth and our balance. And we need all of these pieces together, because how can we serve the small boards if big board people are making the decisions, and vice versa? So we need every single size. And that's why at NAR, they are broken out, like for idea exchanges and things like that, just so that you have the wherewithal to make maybe, you know, an event work, or ideas that work for small boards may work for a large board, or maybe they might need to be tweaked, or vice versa. And one real quick thing I wanted to throw out there too, if you are an NAR director, you're pretty guaranteed of a committee appointment at NAR. So I just wanted everyone to know that, and also wanted to let you know that Cindi cannot endorse for Texas, and I cannot endorse for anything because of my position. So to save you the time to ask, I can just tell you now that I cannot endorse. You can send me an email if you'd like to tell me what your interests are, but that's the best I can do right now, since I'll be at the table.
Hey, Cindi.
Go ahead, Shad.
I just wanted to chime again on with what Leslie said. We all know Dan Hatfield, a great member, came from a 32-member board. He's been chairman of Texas Realtors. He's also been over the Land Institute, and he's from a 32-member board. So I just want you to know that you don't have to be from a large board to exceed into leadership.
That's a great comment. Thank you, Shad. So what about, Shad, you touched on this a while ago, but I think it's important that we make sure that we expand on the part about there being kind of a place for everybody. A great question in the chat right now is, I don't love public speaking. For me to serve, do I need to be able to get in front of a crowd, or is there another place for me? Johnny, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I think, of course, there's always a place for everybody. I forgot the quote, but, you know, the shadow is just as important as the leader. And I think that's, you know, kind of a powerful statement when you think about it. Not everybody is going to be a chair, not everybody is going to be a vice chair, but without their shadow and without that committee, they can't perform the work that is required to be done. So I would, again, you know, the takeaway is, of course, get involved. And I just want to add on one other thing, tagging on to what Shad and Leslie were saying. Coming from a big board, don't feel like you are lost at sea. It's real easy to feel that way when there's so many members and so few opportunities on your local board. You know, look out into other areas, look out into your state, you know, level and the national level, but don't give up. Just keep trying. Again, as Leslie had mentioned, there's PAGs, there's task force, there's numerous opportunities. There's tree pack events that you can volunteer on. You know, you got to start somewhere. We all did, and then just kind of go from there, but don't ever give up in the volunteer spectrum.
So here's, yeah, Leslie.
I was just going to say, I applied 7 years in a row to get on Issues MOB at Texas Realtors, and to this day, I've never served on that committee. So one of the speeches that I give is, if I let no bother me, I would not know any of you, and none of you would know me. So don't let it bother you, and keep moving forward.
Wow, that is so important, Leslie. Thanks for sharing that. So here we have the 2022 president of the National Association of Realtors, who struggled for 7 years to get on a committee that she wanted to be on at Texas Realtors. And I think I can safely say that that was not personal. It's really important for you to remember that sometimes the whole idea about geography or diversity and all those things that Leslie mentioned may block you out, because someone who already fills that role is already seated on the committee. So it's not personal if you don't get selected, you just have to keep trying. That goes for the Realtors leadership programs, both at the state level, and some of you may know there's also a National Realtors Leadership Academy. And all of those opportunities, whether it's committee service or the smallest, sort of builds a brotherhood and a little family within the family. The reason I'm saying that is because Cindy Heyman posted in the chat that her Realtors Leadership class was the best one ever. That was the class of 2011, but clearly she forgot this class of 2008. So you can see that it does sort of build a brotherhood. Before we wrap up today, it looks like we've got about 5 more minutes before we have to wrap up. I'd love to just go around to each of the panelists and see what else they might have on their minds that they can just sort of tie up with today. And if any other questions come through the chat, we'll sure try to pick them up as we have time. Leslie, can you get us started?
Sure. First of all, note to self, never wear green with a green screen. So I just keep blending out. It's like I can't breathe or move, but I know you all know I'm actually here in one piece. Just part of me keeps disappearing. I will tell you, and I talk about this is one of the speeches that I give a lot with leadership, is I grew up dancing on stage and I was fine. And I split center because I was the tallest on kick line. So everyone guided to me, which put a lot of pressure on me. But I hated microphones. I did not want to speak. If you told me, hey, Leslie, you know, at the end of the meeting, would you make an announcement about such and such an event? I'm like, oh my gosh, I will not listen to the speaker. I won't know who the speaker was. I might not be there when the end of the meeting comes. I might be down the hall. I just did not like microphones. But my degree is in television and radio. But I wanted to be in radio where I could have a bad hair day. I love music and I'd be behind the scenes. But being in front of people with a microphone, it was all in my head. And I really had an issue with it. So my father at his inaugural in 1990 asked me to give his invocation. And I said, Dad, I just can't do it. So I didn't do it. And I always felt badly that I didn't. I felt like I let my dad down. And I can tell you from someone who used to literally, I would rather eat liver or serve time than speak in front of people. So that's how much I hated it. And I had to get out of my comfort zone and learn how to deal with it. You do not have to speak or be in front of people speaking with a microphone to serve at the committee level. And it depends on the leadership of a committee as to whether you do. But if you ever feel like that is just way too scary for you, I'm happy to talk with you about it and tell you some of the things that I did to overcome. I can do it at the drop of a hat, as you can imagine now, because that's all I do every day, all day. But it is something that is in your head more than you realize. And it was certainly in mine. And just a couple pointers, I will tell you that I did better if I got in the area in which I was going to speak. In other words, a head table or a podium. If I kind of like hung around there a little bit, then I got a little bit in my comfort zone. But if I sat in the audience and I never went up there and then you called me up, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die before I get up there. And then I really feel like I'm hyperventilating. So you just have to learn what works for you and learn to do what it takes to overcome. I've got some pointers. If you ever need them, let me know, but don't let speaking in front of people keep you from getting involved.
Thank you, Leslie. And keep in mind, there are, especially at the local level, but at all levels, there are positions where it might just be research, or maybe you're reading and reporting. There are volunteer positions that wouldn't require you to do it if you didn't want to. Because I mean, we have positions and opportunities for what we would call leadership, which are really just member engagement, and which is critical to our organization. Johnny, let's go with you. Any words of wisdom you want to wrap us up with?
So, I mean, we're here with some great leaders. I mean, I think we've covered most of the questions that people have, but some in-house administrative things that I wish somebody would have told me back in the very beginning, hindsight. You know, keep a running list of all of your involvement. Keep a list of all those committees that you may have served on. Keep a list of all of the tree pack events, the NAR events, the Texas REALTORS events. Keep a list of all of that. You know, because whenever you go to fill out your Texas REALTORS application or your NAR application for an appointment, you need to have, as Shad pointed out, a filled out profile. That includes a photo, a professional photo. That includes all of your information with the correct phone number and email address. You'd be surprised. People don't update their information as it changes. So just keep an organized list and save it somewhere on your computer or on a flash drive, because you will keep going back to that thing time and time again. So just, that's a little tidbit of wisdom, housekeeping from me.
That is great advice, Johnny. Thank you. How about you, Shad?
Well, I'll wrap it up by saying, follow your passion. The committee that you want, whether it's diversity or it's a members benefit or it's business policy, follow your passion. And I'll share this with you. When I ran locally to get on the board, it took me 5 times to get on my local board. I lost 5 times before I got elected. So don't give up, as Leslie said about no. You just keep trying and follow your passion. I think that is the key to you serving and us getting the best out of you to improve the industry.
And
Wow, thank you. Leslie?
I did 6 years before I got local president. 6 times I interviewed before I was local president, and then I was unopposed at the national level. So go figure. You never.
So what a great level of information we got today. And these 3 leaders are so incredibly committed. Leslie Rouda Smith, you were the immediate past chair when I came on as the red shirt of the Texas Leadership Team. And I remember you said something to me that I've heard repeated many times, and 2021 Chairman of the Board, Marvin Jolly, said it just yesterday. And that is that our #1 jobs as we make our way up from or really down, because the top of our leadership is our members, right? So the further through the ladder that we go of leadership, the further down we go, the more responsibility we hold, but we answer to more people, because the ultimate leaders of this organization are our members. But Leslie, you said to me that my #1 job was to find my replacement. And no matter what position you sit in any level of the Realtor organization, that is your #1 job, because that's how Texas Realtors got to be 101 years old this year. And is NAR 113 or 116, Leslie? Just trivia. Someone said 113.
1908. So do the math.
Whatever that math is. But that's how this organization has perpetuated. It's how it's become so incredibly powerful. But we must never forget that power comes with epic responsibility, and you are part of that responsibility. So thanks for being with us today. Our panelists shared some incredible information. Shad, Johnny, Leslie, thank you, thank you, thank you. Your time is worth its weight in gold, and we are very, very grateful. Audience, we appreciate your time. Obviously, you have interest because you're here, because you joined us, and because you care. And I would venture a guess that most of you who are watching have already volunteered at some level and are looking for new opportunities to volunteer. So if you have questions, feel free to contact us. You can do that at info@texasrealtors.com, or you can do it by calling 512-480-8200. That's 512-480-8200, and we will direct your inquiry to the right person. Johnny invited you to call him. You always have my number. It's posted on that texasrealestate.com website. I think probably Shad's is too. I'm not sure about Leslie's. She only has 1.4 million people to answer to, so we might spare her that phone call. But 1.5. Just remember that the NAR committee application deadline is this Friday, May the 28th, and a link to both the NAR and the Texas Realty Committee applications can be found in the chat. Texas Realtors is currently accepting applications through Friday, June the 18th. And we hope you'll consider getting involved, because we need all the help we can get. You can learn more at texasrealestate.com/committees. And truly, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for joining us today. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.